Welcome to a special Home Edition live webinar for our clients about investing and financial planning in a crisis economy. I'm Kenny Gott, certified financial planner, consultant, and president at Paycheck & Associates in Springfield, Missouri. Very glad to have you with us. The COVID-19 pandemic we're in the middle of is a terrible challenge to our health, our jobs, our social life, the economy, and of course the stock market. In good times and bad times, we talk to our clients all the time about how to plan for the next recession, and it could happen at any time. Now, this hasn't officially been declared a recession, but if GDP growth is negative for 2 consecutive quarters, along with other criteria like the unemployment rate and other things, this may be a recession. How long? Nobody knows. There are always unforeseeable effects of economic turmoil, and we won't know the real extent of it until after all of this is over. Here are our disclosures. We're required to share this because we're both securities and insurance licensed, so we can talk about all kinds of investment products. We're not going to talk about specific products today, just general planning and investing concepts. And I want to add, most of this information is general enough that it could apply to most economic downturns, recessions, and crisis economies. First, I want to offer sincere thanks on behalf of all of us at Paycheck & Associates to you or your loved ones who are out there helping make things better for the rest of us and protecting us. Frontline healthcare workers, first responders, grocery store workers, delivery people, repair folks, gas station attendants, everyone who's making this really tough situation better. I also want you to know that thoughts, love, and prayers are going out right now from us at Paycheck & Associates for any of you or your loved ones who are suffering because of this pandemic, and also for those we have lost. I've talked with a lot of you by phone, hearing about how you're coping with all this. Sometimes you just need to talk about it, right? Well, so do we. We're all in this together, and we sincerely appreciate the relationship we have with you and the way we can kind of just talk to each other as human beings, finding our way through this strange and hard time. So thank you for being out there to share this with. It means a lot to us. So here's what we're going to talk about. How to stay healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. What resources are available to help us. Avoiding scams. What should we do with our stimulus checks? So stock picking and market timing still don't work. Should we get out of the markets until they start to come back? What if we have extra money to invest, or we want to go more aggressive? And finally, your 20-something was 10-something during the 2008 recession. Talk to them, and we'll talk a little bit about how to do that. I'm going to be brief on each of these topics, but I encourage you to reach out to us and to your other resources to go into more detail on any of these that you need to. So our first topic is stay healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. I'm no doctor. I'm not a mental health care professional, and I'm not a spiritual guide. Seek out those people if you need them. They're still out there. So take care of your health in all of these ways. Someone mentioned to me one time an easy way to remember these real basics for physical and mental health. RED. That's rest, exercise, and diet. So get plenty of rest and sleep, exercise regularly, and eat right. And I'll tell you, this isn't the first situation where I've talked about taking care of your health. In my book, in the chapter about risk management, including health insurance, I say the best way to keep your health care expenses low is to just stay healthy. And I'll add one more here. Socialize. Yes, we need to keep the physical distance during this pandemic. Humans are social animals, so this can be a devastating problem, really, especially if you're alone. And if this goes on a long time, it will be harder and harder whether you're alone in your home or not. So if you're not already using Skype, FaceTime, Zoom, or other such ways to see and talk to your loved ones online, maybe it's because you aren't tech savvy. So find a friend or a family member, get on the phone, let them help you get going. It's really the next best thing to a hug. Same thing applies to exercise. There are more exercise videos on YouTube than ever. And if your church is doing online services, figure out how to join. And if you're at home with others, find new things to try. My wife and I had never done a crossword puzzle together, and we did that a couple of weekends ago. It was fun. We also looked at a couple of YouTube videos on learning to speak a foreign language, and we're working on a paint project we've been putting off for a while. So everyone's in the same boat. This is hard. Keep thinking about ways to stay healthy and sane and connected with others. So let's talk about maintaining your financial health. What resources are available to help us? Well, first, here is my email address. Email me any questions you have. I'll try to help, but I can't give specific investing advice, of course, without talking to you directly, to learn about your specific situation. My book is also a good source of general information about financial planning and investing. It's available at Amazon.com, or ask me or our staff how to get a free copy. CDC.gov has tons of good information, everything from a household checklist for how to stay healthy, what to do if someone shows symptoms, tips for protecting high-risk individuals and children, even tips for pet owners. And here's a spoiler alert, your cat needs to practice social distancing outside the home just to keep from bringing coronavirus back to you, so they probably need to stay in. Springfieldmo.gov/5068/coronavirus has local infection rates, updated information about testing, and links to lists of healthcare providers in our area. And it also has guidance for specific groups like parents, business owners, including the latest government orders, and what to do if you have a confirmed case in your workplace, information for faith-based groups, and lots of other stuff. SBA.gov is where you can find information about relief programs for small businesses, if you're a business owner. And for resources to help you or loved ones with food, housing, medical care, counseling, and other necessities, go to 211.org or dial 211 on your phone to find local nonprofits who can help with almost anything. And this does work in all 50 states. And you can also help those great organizations help others by volunteering or donating. And charitynavigator.org is a good place to make sure a charity you may want to use or donate to is legitimate. Okay, if this economic crisis is affecting your income and you don't have a formal budget, a written budget, create one now. The appendix of my book has a budget list that can help you get started. Email me and I'll send that to you, or just Google household budget items and you can come up with your own budget list. So once you have your budget written down, if your income is not enough right now to pay for everything, find things in your budget you can adjust. So here's some potential budget adjustments you may be able to make until your income is back to normal. Your mortgage lender may be able to defer payments for a period of time, and that's great as long as it won't affect your credit score. Keep in mind, if you defer payments on a debt, it may be, of course, added to the principal, and you'll pay interest on that. So it's going to add to your long-term expenses. But for short-term relief, that may be one option. The Small Business Administration loans are mostly forgivable. A lot of rules around that, so be careful there. If you have a small business loan already, they can defer payments and actually make the payments for you, so you don't have to even make those payments in the future for business owners. Same thing with other types of loans. If you can defer payments without affecting your credit or piling up interest, utilities, health insurance and other insurance payments. Maybe there are streaming services or other subscriptions you don't need. And then, think of those miscellaneous items that you can cut. Now, be sure to make minimum credit card payments or pay it monthly. Pay it off monthly if you can. You don't want to pile up high interest debt. Some credit cards are, I've noticed, offering lower rates on certain types of purchases and longer repayment periods, like groceries and healthcare. But if the lower interest rate is 12% instead of 19%, that's still not great. So don't pile up 12% debt. Scams. Unfortunately, identity thieves and financial scammers are even a bigger threat than usual during economic downturns, as scammers prey on people who are struggling and looking for solutions. So here's ftc.gov/coronavirus/scams-consumer-advice for current scams and things you can do. Be careful clicking on internet links and email attachments, and that's true anytime, of course. Be careful sharing personal information on Facebook and other social media, especially if you're out of town. Not a lot of people taking vacations right now, but if you're away from the house, probably not a great idea to brag about being away from the house, because that's just a wide open invitation for burglars. For example, don't share personally identifying information with unknown callers or visitors or online, of course, and that would be, name, date of birth, address, phone number, social security number, of course, anything like that. Don't share account information. Check the Better Business Bureau for complaints on particular companies if you're going to do business with somebody. And if you're a victim, contact the state attorney general. So what should we do with our stimulus check? So if you're receiving extra money in the form of a government stimulus check or from any other source, you or your loved ones may fall into one of three categories, starting with if your income is not even enough to cover your basics, then use it for that. Use the extra money for your basics and cut your budget if possible to make the money stretch and last longer for you. Second category, you have plenty of income right now, but you're not 100% sure it's going to be okay in the future. It may be affected. In that case, you want to save the extra money in the bank right now, use it for backup, and still cut your budget if possible. The third category, your income is plenty now, it's going to be plenty later, none of this is going to affect your income. So then you have a few choices. If your emergency fund isn't enough, add it to that. Need an emergency backup fund for unexpected expenses. If you've got plenty of emergency fund, then you can add it to your retirement savings if you haven't got enough in there. And if both of those are taken care of, and this really is just extra money, here's a couple of ideas. If you haven't refinanced to a lower rate on your home mortgage in the last few years and you're going to be staying in the house for at least 5 years or more, you could use it to cover closing costs on a refinance. Or you could use it for home improvement projects that may increase the value of your home. Or if nothing else, help those who really need it, either people you know or people you don't know through legitimate nonprofits. And again, why not still make sure your budget is what it should be? No wasted money on subscriptions you don't need, things you could get by on for less money by shopping around a little, for example, cell service, phone service, insurance, things you may not have comparison shopped in a while. So it's never a bad time to be frugal. And we have a client question. Will all this government stimulus spending increase inflation? Well, that's a good question. That was a fear in 2008 when they spent, $750 billion on the stimulus package, including checks going out to folks. But inflation never took off as many predicted it would. But nobody knows if that might happen down the road in this case. One thing This money is kind of a placekeeper for money that would normally be circulating through the economy, but it's not, as consumers aren't spending as much, except on groceries and toilet paper, right? So this money is greasing the wheels really temporarily to keep businesses afloat and food on the table for laid off workers and so on. And once the economy gets back to normal, the Federal Reserve could draw some of that extra cash back out of the economy through quantitative measures to keep inflation in check. They can raise interest rates. They've got levers they can pull. We'll see. But for most economists, it's a risk worth taking for the sake of stabilizing the economy right now, at the expense of having to maybe do a little cleanup on the back end. But that's a good question. Okay, stock picking and market timing still don't work? No, they don't. This is something we've talked about with our clients forever, a lot, all the time, especially newer clients. We talk about it so often, our clients eventually can recite it back to us. So there are mountains of academic research, and it shows stock picking and market timing just don't work. It's not worth the expense and effort. Here's an email from a client. It's a newer client, recently widowed, just now starting to get her bearings and her life back on some kind of even keel. She sent me this email because she was seeing stock markets dropping. She says, "Hi Kenny, I hope you're doing okay. Did you lock my money or move more of it into bonds, etc. for a period of time?" I talked to her about this at length, trying to guess when to get out as the stock market downturn started would be a form of market timing. So you'd have to figure out exactly when to get out, and then on the back end, you have to figure out when to get back in, and it just doesn't work. Here's an interesting study. Investment funds with less turnover, which is trading activity, buying and selling, perform 1.92% per year better on average than mutual funds or other types of accounts where the manager is doing more trading. So the less the fund manager does, the better the fund does. If professional fund managers do worse the more they trade, how could that be? Shouldn't they be improving your performance by knowing what stocks to pick and when to get in and out of the stock market? You would think, right? Well, here's another study I refer to a lot, the Guru study. These are so-called experts whose only job is to decide when to get in and out of the stock market or particular stocks, and they're just terrible at it. This was 6,582 forecasts by 68 different, again, experts, and they managed to guess which way things will go about 47% of the time. So a little worse than a coin flip. So why? Why is this? So here's why. First of all, the stock market is made up of thousands of companies. So the investing world, which is mainly professionals like mutual fund managers, pension funds, 401k managers, big stockbrokers, but also, all the amateur investors too, they all continually place a price on each stock in the stock market. And they're making their estimation based on public information. And it's a lot of information, but it's all public, and that's kind of the key. So they're looking at quarterly company financial reports, news in the media about the company, developments in the particular market sector of those companies, energy, healthcare, industrials, whatever, and news about the overall economy, including events like this crisis we're in right now in 2020, and any news that may affect the economy or the stock market. So the thing is, all news about the economy or about a particular stock is immediately available to all investors, and therefore it's immediately priced in to each of those stocks. You just can't beat the other thousands of investors to the trading platform to sell when bad news is announced, or to buy when there's good news or a good quarterly company report or a bad quarterly report to sell. By the time you sell or buy, the prices have probably already adjusted. So just hypothetically, for example, you notice toilet paper is sold out everywhere. It makes a little bit of sense, but not to the degree we've seen. But you put two and two together and you decide to buy stock in a name brand toilet paper company. So you're too late. The price has already run up. So if you buy now, you're buying high. In fact, it's possible the amateur investors who aren't really looking at the company's quarterly financial reports or other information, or maybe they're paying more than the stock is really worth, which can drive up the price even more. So you may pay, more than the stock is worth now, which then may adjust downward soon, which could leave you at a loss. So let's say then everybody wises up and quits buying so much toilet paper. They got enough. It's piled up. You want to sell your stock now? Well, again, you're too late. Professional analysts maybe already noticed that yesterday, and the price already dropped on this stock. So, this is a hypothetical scenario. I'm not saying buy or sell toilet paper stocks or buy more or less toilet paper itself. So each stock is priced correctly, quote unquote, at all times because all public information is available to all investors right away and is priced into the value of each company's stock at all times. Now, that's not to say there aren't fund managers who have more talent than other fund managers. That is the case. That's been studied as well. But it turns out that the more talented managers charge more for their funds. So their annual fee, their expense ratio is higher. So they end up going home with more money, and the investor ends up in the same boat. So it's not a matter of finding a fund manager that beats all the others. You'll pay more. And in general, that's not going to happen anyway. About 20% of fund managers beat the market any given year, but it's not the same group from year to year. So you can't really chase returns and do better. It's just kind of random, really. But as an amateur investor or even as a professional, if that's your job, you can almost never buy a stock for less than it's really, again, worth, or sell a stock for more than it's really worth, or know when the overall market is going to go up or down in order to make the correct move. So markets are totally unpredictable, and you can't beat other investors to the phone even if you have a good investing idea. And we had another client question ahead of this seminar, ask about investing in gold because they saw an ad online with a long video about buying gold royalties. Now, I've seen a lot of these kind of things. I always tell clients it's really interesting how gold salespeople on AM radio and online, wherever, they all yell, buy now when gold prices are low, so you don't miss the run up. And then on the other end, they yell, buy now when gold prices are high because, look what you're missing out on. So in this promotional video the client sent me, the guy at one point, he predicts gold will go to $2,000 an ounce by the end of 2020. That's what he says. But on the screen, which was showing basically a script of what he was supposedly saying, like a slideshow, the script said 2019, not 2020. So obviously he made the same exact prediction last year, and it didn't really work out that way then. The truth is gold prices are very volatile. It's not a conservative or safe investment or a safe harbor, which I hear it called sometimes. It's speculative. And on any speculative investment, don't put more than about 5% of your total portfolio into any single investment, including gold or anything else. And, if you own a broad total stock market fund like we use for a lot of our clients, you already own indirectly a certain amount of commodities, including gold, because it's used in manufacturing and lots of other industries. So you're already benefiting indirectly in the stock market in a broad fund from the movement of gold prices. So I'm not a big fan of buying gold directly. There's nothing wrong with having a little in your portfolio if you want to do that. Same with any other item. If you have a favorite stock you want to play with, that's fine. Again, though, just keep it to 5% or less. So you can't time the markets. You can't really pick stocks or beat the market. But here's the good news. Historically, markets always recover sooner or later after a downturn. You just have to wait it out. A lower account value is only on paper unless you sell when markets are down. Now, let me repeat. Put it on the screen. Lower stock values are not really a loss unless you sell. Your account statement may be lower because the values are depressed for each of those individual stocks in the funds, but it's all on paper, until you sell. So our client who sent me the email would be locking in an actual loss by selling instead of riding out the downturn and being patient for the eventual recovery. What if you have to sell? First, when would you ever have to sell? Well, to raise cash, right? And this is actually the case with our client who sent me the email. We're sending her a certain amount of money each month from her investment account to her bank account to supplement her Social Security. And she knows that, so that's why she was concerned about, protecting her investment account. So here's our solution to that. It's about planning ahead with our Recession Reserve approach to the stock and bond mix in each client's account. Now, if you've been our client for much time at all, you've heard this strategy probably over and over. We talk about it continually. So if you have both stock funds and bond funds in an account, like our client, think of it as two separate accounts. The stock funds are down, but bond funds, although they can drop in value some, typically don't lose or gain as much value as stocks, nowhere near it. In fact, bond funds are up a bit right now, even though stocks are down. And that's where we raised cash for our client this month while stocks are down. She's not losing money in her stock holdings because we're not selling low. And we knew when we created her investment mix how much she'd be drawing each month, and so we planned ahead back then. We always plan for a 3 to 5 year recession to happen at any time. We use that number because 3.2 or 3 years is the average length of the average recession, going back all the way to before the Great Depression. 2008, it was a little over 5 years. So we think that's a fair target. So any money you're going to need in the next 3 to 5 years, you protect it in something other than stock funds, and then draw from there if the markets are down. It's a simple idea, and it helps clients sleep at night. So you don't have to time when to get in and out of the market. It's a smarter way to invest. It's simpler, easy to understand, and it really works. It's working right now for our client, all of our clients who are taking regular withdrawals, or clients who just need some extra money right now from their accounts. And if you want to talk about your own recession reserve or this concept or any of this, just give us a call. Okay, here's a question we've gotten from clients. What if we have more money to invest? Is now a good time? Well, if the stock market makes sense as part of your financial planning, it's always a good time to invest. Even if markets are at an all-time high, and that's very frequent. It happens usually several times a year, most years. Markets go up about 74% of the time historically. So if you're waiting for that other 26% of the time when there's a downturn, that may make sense, but it really doesn't work, because if you're waiting for markets to drop 30%, let's say, and it doesn't happen for 3 years, and in the meantime, the markets have grown 9 or 10% a year during those 3 years you were waiting for the markets to drop, well, then you missed out on that 30% gain that you were waiting to get. And so since markets are up about 74% of the time, it's a good bet. Even if after you put the money in, the markets drop, they're going to recover. And then over the long run, it's going to get you the growth that you're looking for. But having said all that, if markets are down and you have money to invest, well, it may be a good time to do it, of course. So, but you got to think it through, though. So you need to make sure you talk to your financial professional, and it makes sense for your planning to invest in the markets. Your emergency fund is plenty, and everything else is in place as it should be. Well, then, if that's the case, then investing during a downturn is fine. When markets finally recover, you'll get an extra bump. For example, if markets are down 20% and you put in $10,000, when markets recover to their pre-downturn level, you get a built-in 20% bump right there. So you get an extra, $2,000, and then you'll be off and running. If you have $1 million to put in, and please do, then you're going to get that 20% bump. So I'd give you an extra couple of $100,000 once the markets recover. But you got to understand, markets could drop more before they recover, and it could take some time. It could take a long time. It may be months, maybe much longer for stocks to recover, for you to get that bump on the end of the recovery. So here's a similar question. Should we go more aggressive, in other words, more stocks, in our investment mix during a downturn? So this is similar. And this would mean, for example, if you have an account that's 50% stocks, 50% fixed, you change to 90% stocks. So we'd be selling out of the fixed funds, bond funds, for example, and using that money to buy more stock funds. Since the markets are down, we'd be buying low, buying stocks at a discount price. But here's an important question. If right now you're moderately invested 50-50 stocks to fixed, how did you arrive at that mix? Presumably you worked with an advisor, or at least thought it through yourself carefully, and fits your risk tolerance, including your emotional reaction to downturns, as well as your timeline, and it fits the amount of growth you need to meet your goals and make it through retirement. And also, by the way, if you're getting distributions from the account, we'd be rating your Recession Reserve to do this. The bond funds, while we're where we've been getting your monthly distributions during a downturn, let's say. So if you suddenly move to 90% stocks while markets are down, yes, you'll get that bump we described when the markets finally recover. But in the meantime, again, markets could drop more before they recover, and it could be months or much longer before they come back. And as long as you stay aggressive, you could see a lot more volatility, ups and downs in the market than you did previously. And if you do this and markets drop further and you change your mind, you could be locking in actual losses, which is not what you planned. So you need to proceed very carefully with any such tactic. Now, we've had clients do this, understanding all of the pros and cons, and it's okay if a client does this and they've thought it through. And here's another question from a client. Once the markets are back up, would it be a bad idea to take some of last year's gains off the table, put them in something more conservative? Well, there's nothing wrong with that idea, especially after the huge gains last year. And you're correct. You want to wait until markets do fully recover before even thinking about doing this. But if a client wanted to lock in some of those gains by moving part of an account to a fixed product, for example, like maybe a 3% fixed rate annuity or something like that, as long as it doesn't mess up the long-term planning. For example, if you need a certain amount of growth to make it to a ripe old age without running out of money, and going more conservative would reduce your overall growth rate, well, then we have to make sure that's not a problem. And we can do a retirement analysis to be sure, if we haven't already done one for you. And actually, for example, if say you're half stocks and half bonds, This is a separate idea, but you could, and some clients do this, take half of the bond portion, put it into something like a 3% fixed product, for example, and actually that's probably going to give you a little better growth than bond funds are going to perform right now in this interest rate environment we're in. So you may actually be increasing your growth rate by doing that, potentially reducing your volatility and maybe even reducing fees. We can take a look at that if you want. Just give us a call. I'm not going to go any further into the weeds on that. But it's a technique that can be done and maybe to good effect. Okay, our final topic. Your 20-something was 10-something during the 2008 recession. Talk to them. So help your adult kids and grandkids get perspective on what's going on here from a health standpoint, sure, and but the global economy, the U.S. economy, and stock markets, and right down to the household level. It's a great learning opportunity. I actually helped my 14-year-old invest about half of her savings, open a savings account for Christmas money, birthday cash, and so on. And on 2/10, February 10th, about 10 days before this current market downturn started, we put about half that money in the stock market. Terrible timing, right? Well, she's a long-term investor, obviously, and like I always say, it's never a bad time to invest for the long term. Markets always grow over the long run, so that's fine. It's so a week later, on February 27th, she texts me and says, "Is my money gone in the stock market since it crashed?" So clearly she's paying attention to the news. That's good. And oh, by the way, that's not a picture of my daughter. It's a manipulated photo of 21 Pilots drummer Josh Dunn. She's a fan. And you know what? So am I. They're nice, clean-cut kids, super talented, good songs. Josh is a great drummer. Here's my response to my daughter. So I said, your investment account has only lost $50.80 as of now. And I say lost in quotes because you don't actually lose money unless you sell now while the stock market account values are down. Wait it out. The markets will come back and your money will start growing again. It could take days to come back up, or weeks, months, even possibly 3 to 5 years if this turns out to be a full-on recession. As long as the markets are down, it's actually a good time to add more money. You get basically a discount price on stocks. So anytime there's a market downturn and you happen to have more money to put in, you're in the lucky investor club. You get to buy stocks cheaper than usual. Then when the markets recover, you get an extra bump from that. End of lesson. So Amanda says, do that, I guess. And I say, how much? And she says, I don't care, whatever you think. Now, she'd lost $50.80, quote unquote, lost of the $435 she invested. So $50 is a lot of money for this kid, but she hadn't lost all her money. And as she can see, $50 out of $435 isn't disastrous. And so this was a very big dad moment for me. She's 14 and she already knows more than a lot of investors. So you can help youngsters start to get their heads around some basic investing and planning concepts. If you want to give them one of them a copy of my book, let us know. We'll send you a copy. Help them get off to a good start or correct course if they're not on track. So here's the final text to Amanda. It's never a bad time to add more money. When you get a couple more $100 together, we'll invest it. And she says, okay. Here's the book, also available at Amazon.com. And here we are at Pycheck & Associates, back in the good old days when we could stand that close together for a picture. So I want to encourage all of you to hang in there, keep finding ways to create the good life for yourselves, even during strange times like these, and let us know how we can help. Watch our website for updates to our calendar of events as things develop. We recorded this webinar, so it will be on the website. Feel free to refer people to us. You'll be helping them, and they'll thank you later. Special thanks to our Client Relations Manager, Andy Botrell, who is our remote producer for our webinars and helps us take care of client issues, along with our Office Manager, Deanna Wheeler. There's Andy. And our Associate Advisor, Sean Gallagher, right there. This is an amazing team working hard for our clients through this crisis economy, and I appreciate them very much. And of course, thanks to all of you, our clients. You're why we're here. Hang in there. Take care. Call anytime. Thanks for joining.